Now let us see the part 2 of bone. In part 2 of bone, we will be discussing the parts and anatomy of bone. Right. So there are 3 types of bone present in the body. The first is the long bone, then is the short bone, and then we have the irregular bone. In this video, we will be seeing the parts and anatomy of typical long bone. Okay, the typical long bone. We are going to see only the long bone right now. So, when you see this image, this is a long bone, and can you identify the bone? Yes, right, it's a femur. A bone, a typical long bone has 2 ends, and those 2 ends, we call that end as epiphysis. Okay, so these are the 2 ends of the long bone, right, and we call those ends as epiphysis, right. We call those 2 ends as epiphysis. Between those 2 epiphyses, we have a shaft, and that shaft is diaphysis. We call it as diaphysis. There is a small portion where the diaphysis meets the epiphysis. Taking this as a diaphysis and this as an epiphysis, this diaphysis meets the epiphysis, and that part we call it as metaphysis. We will write down over here. Metaphysis. And between this diaphysis, between this metaphysis and epiphysis, we get a thin layer, and that layer is called as growth plate. Okay, so here we have this yellow part here over in this here, and above it, this is the yellow part called as a growth plate. So let us write it down, the growth plate. The other name for the growth plate is epiphyseal plate. Epiphyseal plate, right? Or okay. So what are the parts of the typical long bone? We have two ends, epiphysis, a shaft, diaphysis, the place where the diaphysis and epiphysis meet, its metaphysis, and there is a growth plate or epiphyseal plate. Now, in this femur, we have one more protuberance. Okay, see this one in dotted circle, and that is called as apophysis. So, how this apophysis is made? It's basically, here we have the attachment of one muscle, and because that is a powerful muscle, so because of the traction or because of the pull of that powerful muscle, the bone get grown or get protruded, or you get a protuberance, and that part is called as apophysis. Okay, so these are all the parts of bone. Now let us move towards the anatomy of long bone. So this is a typical long bone over here. We have diaphysis. Then we have this one is epiphysis, E. Then we have the diaphysis, and again we have the epiphysis. Okay. So this is the epiphysis. Then we have the diaphysis. I will draw this arrow bigger because we have other structures also. This is diaphysis, and this part is metaphysis. Which one? Hold for a second. This part is metaphysis, and here we have the growth plate, right? This is the growth plate. So up till now we saw these parts here in the bone. Now this bone is surrounded by a thick fibrous sheet or thick fibrous layer, and we called it as a periosteum, right? Let us draw here first. So here we have the periosteum. Right? So this green layer is the periosteum. Peri means outside or surrounding, and osteum means bone. So layer which is surrounding from outside of the bone, we call it as periosteum. Okay. Now these long bones are hollow in middle. Okay. So these, here we have a hollow part, right? And it is a medullary cavity. And this medullary cavity is covered by another fibrous layer from inside. Okay, so let us draw the fibrous layer from inside. Okay, so this is the fibrous layer from inside. Now, a fibrous layer inside the bone. You can name this endoosteum, right? We call it as endoosteum. Now, one important point for periosteum. Okay, we will write it down in when we will see the periosteum in detail. Okay, now let us take this structure. Okay, this much structure will magnify and see it more clearly. So, see, this is the structure over here. Taking this as the middle part of diaphysis, we have periosteum over here, right? We have the periosteum over here. In middle, we have the medullary cavity, and this part is the cortex. What is this? This is the cortex, and this medullary cavity is lined by the fibrous layer endoosteum. Okay, so just quickly we will level this out. We have periosteum, then we have the cortex, this is the medullary cavity, and this one is endoosteum. Okay, now this thick layer of fibrous layer periosteum throws the fiber inside the cortex. So these fibers, see, these are the fibers which are thrown by the periosteum inside the bone, and these fibers are called as Sharpey's fiber. What you call it as? Sharpey's fiber. This Sharpey's fiber helps the periosteum to adhere the bone properly and tightly. Okay, so we have Sharpey's fiber. One more point which is very important, note it down, that there is osteoprogenitor cell present beneath this layer. So we'll take osteoprogenitor cell in red color and we'll draw it down. So beneath this endoosteum and periosteum, we have a small cells present, and those are the osteoprogenitor cell, right? And this osteoprogenitors differentiate to form osteoblast, osteocyte and osteoclast. Okay, so this is the anatomy of bone and magnification. Okay, now we will see the important points which are helpful or which are important in MCQ questions or MCQ exams, right? First of all, the growth plate. Okay, so can you see this image, right? So there are the layers of growth plate. We'll start enumerating those layers from epiphysis to metaphysis. From epiphysis to metaphysis. Okay, from epiphysis to the metaphysis. Okay, so the first layer near to epiphysis is resting zone or the germinal zone. Okay, so this is the resting zone. Then beneath that resting zone, we have zone of proliferation or zone of growth. Then we have the hypertrophic zone. After this hypertrophic hypertrophic zone, the cell undergo death, and then we have the calcification. Hence, we have the calcification zone. And then there is zone of ossification. Okay, so resting zone, proliferating zone, hypertrophic zone, zone of calcification, and zone of ossification. Right? So these are all the layers of growth plate, and these layers are responsible for the growth. Okay. Now there are two types of growth. First, we have the interstitial growth, and then we have the oppositional growth. Oppositional growth. Right. So what is interstitial growth and what is oppositional growth? The growth because of growth plate which results in increase of length of the bone. The longitudinal growth is called as interstitial growth. So it is due to growth plate, and the longitudinal growth is the interstitial growth, and the oppositional growth is due to osteoprogenitors present beneath the periosteum and endosteum, which is responsible for the increase in width of bone. It is the oppositional growth. Okay, now let us move towards the growth of bone. Okay, all the bones are developed, or they develop from or ossifies. The starting part is cartilage. So first of all, it is cartilage, and because of ossification it becomes bone. And this type, then we have the ossification over here. And this type of formation of bone is called as cartilaginous ossification. Okay, so the bone which develops from cartilage, the cartilage undergo ossification and then we get bone, that type of ossification is called as cartilaginous ossification. There is exception. One long bone is not a cartilaginous ossification, and that is clavicle. So let us write the exception. Exception is clavicle. Okay. Now, whenever a bone ossifies, there are two types of ossification center. Okay, so taking this as a bone, okay, here we have the epiphysis, then we have the diaphysis, and then we have the other epiphysis. Taking this as a long bone, it has two types of ossification center. The first ossification center, when it is in intrauterine life, or it appears in intrauterine life, that is the primary ossification center. And that primary ossification center is in diaphysis, and it is always 1. Okay, so we have the primary ossification center in diaphysis. Right? Then there it is in intrauterine life. Okay, so this is the primary ossification center. Then there is a second type of ossification center, that is a secondary ossification center, and it appears after the birth. Okay, so that it appears after the birth, and it is present in epiphysis. Okay, this is secondary ossification center, and it is after the birth. But here we get one exception. There is one long bone which has a secondary ossification center, and it is present at the time of birth, and that is femur. So the exception is femur. here we get the secondary ossification center at birth, right? So these are the ossification centers present in bone. Now, the secondary ossification center which is not responsible for the growth is apophysis. So, right, let us put a heading, apophysis. It is the secondary ossification center not involved in growth, right? That is apophysis. And one more point we had just discussed about the apophysis. Apophysis is produced because of the pull of the powerful muscles. Okay, and it is because of, excuse me, pull of strong muscles. Okay, so all these are the ossification centers present in the bone. Now let us see somewhat about how the bone, okay, we will cover that point in microscopy of the bone. So now let us move towards the periosteum and endosteum. So the periosteum is the fibro elastic layer. Okay, it is present only at diaphysis. Present at diaphysis, and it is absent at, let me see, there are 2 points, and it is not present or it absent on articular cartilage, and it is also absent in, I should put it and sesamoid bone. I forgot the point sesamoid bone, so I just recollected it. One more point, because of the absence of this periosteum layer, these sesamoid bones are more prone to get fractured, and if that sesamoid bone is attached to the strong muscles, it is more likely to get fractures. And which is the sesamoid bone which commonly get fractured? Yeah, right, it's patella. Okay, the sesamoid bone which commonly get fractured is patella. It is the largest sesamoid bone. Okay, now let us move towards the endosteum. I just said it is also fibroelastic layer covering the medullary cavity from the inside. So fibroelastic layer covers medullary cavity from inside, right? Now let us see the functions of both peri and endosteum. Okay, the first is it provides nutrition to bone, because you get the arterial supply from the periosteum to the some part of cortex of the bone. And then we have, I just mentioned while seeing the figure, that we get osteoprogenitor cells beneath those. So we get, it provides osteoprogenitor, I'll write it down here below, it might get behind me. So osteoblastic cells, right? So this is all the part of anatomy of bone. In next video we will be seeing the microscopy and the blood supply of bone. So stay tuned for my next video, and if you still didn't subscribe to my channel, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. I am recording whole of the series of orthopedics. So here we are at anatomy of bone, then we will see the fractures, polytrauma, injury to different bones and joints, and then we will see the amputation. So stay tuned to my channel for more such videos and hit that like button if you like this.